Is AI all hype, or is there a lot going on here? So that's the question that we're going to answer. And the way that I'm going to do that is by breaking down a very interesting and informative video that came from McKinsey Company. In case you don't know, they are a big consulting firm that offers a lot of information and they do a lot of research. And so they give a lot of advice to companies and businesses throughout the United States and the world on what's going on with business and what they need to do in order to really succeed. So they offer a lot of key insights here dealing with AI and whether or not it's all hype or not. So I'm going to present different clips from that video, and I'll link to the full video, of course, in the description as well as here for you to go through. But I'm going to break it down so that we can really understand, is AI all hype and what is really going on?
Is Gen AI overhyped? Certainly yes. However, if you look at it in the lens of the 30-year AI story and not the 6-month Gen AI story, then we say this is a very, very real trend. I was with the board just a couple of weeks ago, actually, and I was waxing lyrical on how AI is going to change the world. And a board member put up his hand and asked me, he said, okay, that's fine, but will you take a bet with me that generative AI is going to be worth more next year than my NFT portfolio is this year? Good way to ask the question. And again, in the context of the 30-year AI trend, I would take that bet. So what's different and what's special about generative AI? All the prior versions of the technology, which we've sort of cartoon stereotyped on here, are one model, one purpose. You want to try to reduce customer churn, build a special model. You want to try to build a better supply chain, build a better model. You want to try to understand how to optimize pricing or employee, where to look for the next new set of employees, build a specific model. The promise of generative AI, it's the all-purpose model. It's what's called a foundational model that with minimal work and with work that can be done by non-technical people can be applied across many, many AI problems. It's not quite as simple as that. I'll get into it. But the power of these multi-purpose, sort of the Swiss Army knife of AI models that can be applied against many different tasks is going to be an enormous democratizer and expander of the power of AI.
So that's really a big point there, right? That non-technical people are able to use this technology. So it democratizes AI. That's what generative AI is doing. It democratizes the power of AI so that everyday people that aren't technical, that don't know code, they're able to use this. They're able to use the AI for maximum benefit. And talking about the amount of money being generated by its use and its implementation, OpenAI, just OpenAI, and again, there's lots of different AIs out there, generative AIs, but just OpenAI, they will have made over $230 million this year. And they have projections of making $1 billion next year. That's the level of growth. That's the level of utilization and implementation. So if we're talking about hype, of course, there's some hype. Lots of people are talking about it, but it is being used, it is being implemented, and there is revenue that's being generated. So that's important to keep in mind as well.
So what's going to be the value of that to us in the future? So the debate we're having and the bet we're beginning to make is, yes, some of those skills, the ability to communicate well in a document and so on, will be commoditized. But we're going to see an increase in value in 3 areas. Number 1, real creativity. Right? The models can simulate creativity. They're probabilistic, but they're not actually creative. Number 2, technical skills. And there's a bit of a paradox here, because the models are supposed to be and are incredibly easy to use. But as I'll explain in a moment, they're also going to massively increase demand for data engineering and certain other technical skills. So real technical depth. And then number 3, and frankly, this one's a bet, and maybe we're being optimists, leadership. People who can actually lead, set goals, build a team, motivate, align, and so on. At least for now, the models can't do that as well as the humans. Maybe GPT-7 will, but for now, I think we're ahead.
That right there is a very important part as well. We are still part of the equation. It's not this idea that, oh, we're going to have this AI and it completely replaces humans. No, we're still very much part of this. So we do have value within the utilization of AI. We're still going to need people with these type of skills. We're still going to need leadership. We're still going to need creativity to use it in different ways. So those are the things, those are the different aspects that we need to think about as instructors and maximize those things. So that means that if we still have subject matter experts in these areas, they'll be able to use the AI that much more that much more impactfully because they have that subject matter expertise. But along that way, we need to be able to develop those skills of using that AI. So that's where AI literacy really comes in here. They have to know how to use this AI. It's spreading in all businesses, and we're going to see that here in a second. So all students in every major need to have these AI skills. They need to develop this AI literacy in order to be part of the success going forward.
Our economic think tank that you're probably familiar with has done a lot of modeling of what's the impact going to be of AI overall and Gen AI in particular. And I realize as I show this chart, it sort of draws your eyes to the wrong place because you look at it and you see this enormous bar in high tech and in retail, and then smaller bars in agriculture and insurance and so on. But the real message from this chart is these are 50 to 250 billion in every industry, right? So no matter what industry you're looking at, the impact here is going to be enormous. And we actually see, or McKinsey Global Institute sees this, as being essentially an 8-year pull forward of what people thought the economic impact of AI was going to be. There aren't many fields where you wake up one morning and you realize your assumptions were off by 8 years, right? Everything gets pulled forward. So it's pretty amazing in terms of what it can do.
Pretty amazing in what it can do. The impact of AI is unbelievable. And if you see in that chart, right, where he talked about, oh, here's high tech over here, here's agriculture way down there as far as low impact, where is education? Education is right there in the middle. So yes, it is going to affect education in many, many different ways. We need to be prepared for that. The institutions that are going to succeed are the ones that are going to be embracing it and utilizing it and incorporating it so that they are relevant. They are relevant and moving forward. So that's why AI literacy needs to be developed, not just by faculty, not just by students, but by staff as well, so that we can maximize the efficiencies and we can really use it to our own advantage. So that's where we have to understand the capabilities and the implementation.
The other interesting thing, though, is the impact's actually pretty concentrated. If you look across all of those functions, there's about 65 use cases in these, so all of those industries, in these 6 or 7 functions that are driving more than 3/4 of the value. And I'll get more specific. I'll sort of relate these to applications in a moment. But yes, this will transform legal. Yes, this will transform corporate. This will transform finance and so on. But it'll really, really transform sales and marketing, the software or technology function, anything to do with customer operations, and anything to do with product R&D or technical operations.
This is the type of information that all of us in academia need to be really looking at and seeing, oh, where is it really going to be impacting? Okay, those majors, those specific degrees, we have to ensure that we are definitely incorporating AI as much as possible. We're developing those skills because as the chart shows, that's where it's really going to be making this impact. So anything that's associated with any of those things that were listed, any different careers or different fields, they have to be really paying attention, because what we don't want to do is to have our students go through and get a degree in something that they're not prepared to go into. Because if we're still teaching sales and marketing in a certain way, and guess what? The actual real world field is completely different now because these AI tools exist. And we didn't prepare them in any way possible because we're banning AI or we have instructors that don't want to use it. Then guess what? The students won't be prepared. So we have to make sure that we're always looking ahead. We're always thinking about the tools that they will need when they graduate from the university. And even before then, at my university, we have about 80% of our students that are already working. And a lot of them are already working in their specific field. So we have to be relevant. We have to prepare them. We have to help them to be able to be that much more successful by incorporating AI, by using those AI literacy skills.
So how are people really, really using it today? So I've been fortunate enough in the last few months to talk to probably more than 200 chief executives and boards on what we see going on. And at the end of most of those discussions, I ask, how are you actually really, really using it today? And if you ask technical people, you'll get some good, technical answers. But if you ask sort of a general business leadership audience, how are people really using it today? The most common answer, birthday poems, retirement speeches, travel planning, right? It's like the fun stuff. And when you look at what's going on in their companies, there's actually lots of corporate equivalents of the birthday poem and the travel stuff. There's a professor at Stanford, Chris Ree, who uses the phrase sugar water use cases. And many people have found these like use cases that are easy to do, give a quick pop that you're getting something out of it, but might not actually have lasting enterprise scale impact. That's changing though, right? We see an enormous pipeline, and the example you mentioned in customer care is one of the examples I'll use actually, an enormous pipeline of real enterprise scale use cases that are moving down the pipe now and that will be launched in the next few months or have been launched in the last few months. Within McKinsey, we're working with, at this point, nearly 200 clients on actually building enterprise Gen AI applications. 90% of what we're seeing is falling in these 4 categories, the 4 Cs. So I'll spend a few minutes just giving a little bit of a tour of what we're seeing on here. So the first category, like the customer care example, is absolutely customer journeys or patient journeys if you're in healthcare. And the impact potential we're seeing here is enormous. A telecoms company we're working with is targeting an 80% productivity improvement in their customer call centers and sort of customer operations functions. An e-commerce player has already taken a 50% improvement in essentially sales and marketing operations and customer support. They don't have all the applications yet to support that, but they think they will by the beginning of next year. That was the first bounce of the ball, a productivity conversation. There's been a real shift since the beginning of the summer, though, as people are now seeing the growth conversation is as compelling, or I personally think even more compelling, than the productivity conversation. So to bring that to life, there was a paper that came out, or a study that came out over the summer from the UK, actually with doctors, right, that I'll use to illustrate the point. So a set of academics decided to see if patients could tell the difference between a doctor who was texting them and one of the chatbots. I think it was GPT 3.5. So patients were assigned one or the other, interacted with them a little bit, and then it flipped over. And then they asked the patients, could you tell the difference? And to the disappointment of the researchers, on average they could. Even pretty elderly patients, more than 70% of the time, could tell what was the chatbot and what was the doctor. But they then asked a follow-up question. They said, which one did you prefer? The patients overwhelmingly preferred the chatbot. They said it was more informative, but they also said it was more empathetic. So, you know, my brother's a doctor in the UK, so I find the data very easy to believe. But I think, I think it's more importantly than any comments on the NHS is it actually foreshadows what we're going to see in terms of how companies can build new relationships with their customers and their stakeholders, and what this means for how you can engage a customer, deepen a relationship, think about cross-sell, upsell, and so on. It's enormous. And we're really just at the very beginning of people using that in customer journeys.
This is a key area, right? And it's interesting, and we really need to be thinking about this, where it talks about the customer-patient journey. Because at one level, we in education, right, in academia might be thinking, oh, that's talking about customers and patients. That doesn't necessarily deal with us in education, but of course it totally does. Because let's extract the information dealing with customers and patients and apply that to students. How many students are trying to get a hold of us, but of course we can't accommodate them because we don't work 24/7. So now we have a tool that can assist in providing them the information that they need. So we need to be thinking about that. How can we implement AI to serve as a proper tool to assist our students? So there's all sorts of new AI chatbots where we can feed it in specific information that's coming directly from us that now a student could use whenever they need. That's just one implementation. There's also different things where we could use the AI to assist us in our interactions, to evaluate our interactions, sort of to ensure that we are at a high standard. So it's to help us with evaluation, self-evaluation, self-development, all these different tools that these are real capabilities, not just hype, but real capabilities that can assist us in, again, developing us and improving ourselves moving forward to really develop those relationships as well.
So that's the first flower petal on here. The second flower petal, it's a word that I was accused that we made up, concision, but we've said it enough times that by next year I'm hoping it will be in the dictionary. And it's concise plus precision. And already you can ask, you know, what are the drivers of global soybean production or something, and you can get an amazingly summarized answer on your phone in milliseconds. That's somewhat useful, but what's really useful is if you can combine the ability to do that with your organization's own private data. And if you can do that in a way that has the right one-way valves on it, And if you can do that in a way that takes context into account in the right way, so it can tell the difference between what's good, recent, relevant information by someone who knows what they're doing versus what some other random company document that happens to be in the archive. It's quite hard to do, but when you do it well, we're actually seeing amazing examples of people setting up virtual experts. So a mining company we work with has done this for its large equipment. Instead of having the classic PDF maintenance manual, you can now have a chat maintenance manual. The biggest difference is users actually use it, right? Instead of having to thumb through, they're really using it, therefore they're getting better results. Therefore, they're also learning all sorts of things about preventive maintenance and predictive failures and so on. I was interested to hear Richard's comments on Taiwan, but a Taiwanese electronics company that we work with is using this in their product development function. They think they have some amazing engineers and some more average engineers. So how do you actually upskill your engineers to get that expertise into the best ones? Another thing we found as we're doing this, actually this work was with a law firm. If you're a lawyer, if you're a second-year associate and you don't know the answer to something, who do you ask? You ask your office mate who's the third-year associate, right? Which might not actually be the best of the firm's expertise. The nice things about these virtual expert systems is you democratize access to the 20-year senior partner in that law firm who really does know things rather than just the more typical phone-a-friend approach.
Democratizing access to useful information. That's pretty powerful. So we need to think about that as well. And what they're describing here is being able to use the AI in a more advanced way. Now, we can do this to some extent with free tools like ChatGPT, the free version, where if we have prompt engineering skills, we can feed it advanced prompts. I've talked about that in the past, where if we have a prompt formula, we can use it at a more advanced level to get more specific information. But the next step, of course, would be that we could feed it specific information. We could talk about feeding it specific policies or specific standards for our organization, specific information for our class. So now we're talking about some more investment. There are different ways to use AI, such as ChatGPT Plus, such as using an API, where now we're able to have our own sort of database of information that the AI will use in order to give us the answer that we want. So let's say we have a student in our class and they're asking our AI, our class AI, questions about the course, questions about the assignment. Well, the AI would know that because we would have an API set up where we could feed it our specific information. So this would be things like the syllabus, things like all the rubrics, things like instructions. So it would know that. So there's different ways of implementing it. Different course management systems have different modules that could do that. So definitely look into that at your institution to see if there is a way to implement. Of course, this is going to take some investment, but this is where we need to have that discussion and really look at, okay, is this going to be really beneficial? What's the value proposition here? Because as AI continues to develop, there's going to be more capability. There's going to be more situations where, yes, the AI is going to provide so much more for the student that we need to make these investments. Plus, the cost will continue to go down. And so that's something that we really need to be looking at. And again, this ties back in, everything ties back in with AI literacy, because now we also have to be thinking about critical thinking and the ethics associated with this. If we have our own AI that the institution is using, where we're using API access and everything is localized, well, now the information of the student is that much more protected as well, because they're accessing local information. It's all being controlled by the institution. So again, these are more things to be thinking about. I know all universities don't have high budgets to be investing in, but these are things that we need to be continually looking at, continually reviewing, and being at least aware of, so that when prices go down and we have that proper value proposition there going and return on the investment, now we can say, yes, we do want to invest. Yes, this is a tool that's going to be this much beneficial for the student, for safety, for all these other privacy issues, that we are going to be making these investments, but we need to think that through. So this is an important part to really think about.
The software engineers are very much ahead of the game and really are using this in a very significant way. So what we've seen is, if you give people the automated coding tools out of the box, you get about a 20% productivity improvement. If you then put some training routines around that, that goes to a 55 to now 75% productivity improvement in software development. What does that mean? That means the costs of developing software have halved since the beginning of the year. They might halve again by the middle of next year. If you think about what that means for build versus buy decisions within your organization, if you think about what that means for the enterprise software industry, which has, by the way, been one of the best private equity investments of the last few years, and the sort of the new competition we're going to see in there as the cost to develop falls way, way down, this is a dramatic change. By the way, if you give these tools to bad developers, you see a 7 to 8% decrease in productivity because they just develop more bad code more quickly.
There is a lot that was said in that short period of time dealing with coding. Now, again, I'm not a computer programmer, so this isn't my field, but we really need to be thinking about this. Most universities have some sort of computer programming courses or degrees, data science degrees, computer science degrees. So this is a really important part here. There's two big parts here. One is that they still need to learn computer programming. And if they know it at an advanced level with advanced capabilities, and then they use an AI, wow, they'd be that much more productive. So he said that right there, where you give an AI tool to somebody that's a bad coder, they're still going to be a bad coder. But you give an AI tool, a co-pilot, if you will, to someone that is a good programmer, then they're going to be able to accomplish so much more. That's one thing. The other thing is talking about the costs of computer programming. So we need to be thinking about, well, what type of computer programming are we teaching? At what level, at what capability, what language of computer programming, the way that it's being used. We really need to be thinking about that in how we're instructing our students, because they need to have these AI skills. They need to be able to work with the AI in the proper way, in the proper function, in order to be able to do so much more. So the capability and how that they're using, how they're interacting with that AI is really important. That's a major aspect that we need to be teaching right now, is how to work with that AI, especially for coding, because it's revolutionizing the way that coding is being made. So that's something that's really important, that we really need to be thinking about the instructional techniques. What are the student learning objectives going on within that field? They need to be revamped. They need to be looked at. They need to be thought about, and they need to be altered so that AI is integrated so that we can make the best computer programmer for what's the reality of right now.
The fourth category on here is creative content. So you've all seen, I expect, and played around with all the fun things you can do with images, right? The potential here is amazing. Most big companies, by the way, are realizing they need their own proprietary image databases, and it's just too risk-fraught to rely on what the models pull from the public internet. But amazing things you can do there. Amazing things you can do with personalized marketing and individual outreach campaigns. But also, a molecule is an image too. So we're helping clients do really interesting things on taking a chemistry, how you can create some variations around it that might be greener or that might have different or better properties, or how you can actually use a molecule and look at all the different uses that has to actually search the literature in a much more efficient way to find uses for it that you couldn't find before. Or, again, sort of second bounce of the ball, there's a fantastic example that's emerged from China in the last few weeks. So you've probably all seen live stream sellers online, right? It's an enormous business in China. It's a smaller business in the rest of the world, where people are on the internet all hours of the day and night selling different consumer products. So there's a company in China now where you give them $1,000 and 1 minute of video. It used to be 3 minutes. They've got it down to 1 minute. And they will create a virtual seller for you. They will take that video and they will turn it into an avatar that can sell whatever product you like. It works 24/7. It doesn't eat too much. It won't be as good as your best seller, but it's actually outperforming the average seller that most companies have within their sort of repertoire of live stream sellers right now. In the space of a few months, there are now 400,000 of these out there online selling consumer products day and night. 400,000. The wages for real live stream sellers have dropped apparently more than 20%, right, since the arrival of the bot sellers. How this plays out is going to be really interesting. Now, listen, that one might be a bit of a sort of a particular quirk that might be regulated out of existence, but what that shows is sort of a microcosm of what the technology can do, I think is a fascinating example.
The topic of creativity is something that's really powerful, and it has been discussed a lot. And we have to think, well, what do we mean here? Some people like to say, oh, a computer, the AI, it's not really creative. And to that, I'm like, what do you mean? Of course it's creative. It can do so much. It can create so much. And it's not just, oh, there's an image, I'm going to copy that and present that. No, it's putting multiple things together and creating something brand new. So yes, creativity is definitely part of what AI can do. That's no longer something special that just humans can do. It's definitely part of AI now. So along with that, I want to share this other story, right? So I've worked in many different institutions and I've worked in many different teams and groups. And so I've been around where we started to use the term creatives, right? Someone that's in marketing, someone that's in graphic design, they're referred to as creatives, right? And I hate that term. I hate that term because that sort of starts to push this idea that, oh, only people that use that or do those type of things, they're the only ones that use any type of creativity. And of course, that's completely wrong because in every single field, there's creativity of thinking of new things, of trying to solve problems. That all takes creativity. The power of AI is that it can help us with all of those different aspects. It can be creative on its own, and we can say, hey, help us with this creative aspect, or it can also help us in coming up with creative solutions. So we use it as a tool for us to create, for us to do much more. This is something that we have to really be thinking about, and it applies to every single major. Every single topic has problems to solve, needs creativity in order to advance, to develop, to create more. Right now, AI is being used in many, many different ways. I personally use AI all the time in that I'm using it to help me come up with different ways of improving my class. I go to the AI and I say, hey, I'm having this issue in that I don't think the students are understanding this. What are some different ways that I could teach this topic? What are some different in-class activities that we could do? Well, how can I make this more hands-on? So I'm using it in that way. I know plenty of instructors that are using it that way, plenty of instructors that are going to the AI, such as DALL-E 3, right, image creator, and saying, hey, I need more images for my presentation in class. What would be a good image dealing with this? And then you feed it and it gives you wonderful images to use. Again, there's plenty of image generators out there. Again, thinking about how can we make our presentations, our instruction more visual. Now there's even video creation that the AI can do. Thinking about AI in many different ways. Most of the assignments that I've been giving this semester have incorporated AI in some way, whether that's the students using it to assist with brainstorming, coming up with ideas for a project, helping them with aspects of the research, helping them to get feedback on what they're creating, being able to bounce ideas off of an AI. It functions in that way. Again, not as a replacement for anything, but as an assistive tool that can enhance and help them to do much more and help them to be at a higher level. I mean, the types of images that the AI can create are very professional. They're very useful. And as the video just showed, there's many different uses and ways to think about it. I mean, helping it with visualizing molecules, visualizing what programs might look like, visualizing all sorts of different things. We need to think about AI as an assistive tool for creation as well. So this creativity aspect is really important.
Be a taker, right? Assess it, see if it's good enough, pick it up when it works for you. Instead, we're saying, think about where you want to be a shaper. What are the places where you're going to drive real competitive advantage if you get it right? Right? What are the things that are your company's special sauce? And that's where you actually will need to build something proprietary, right? Doesn't mean build from scratch, but assemble from components something proprietary that's going to work for you, right? Where you can be a shaper. So if you look at the thing that we chose to shape, this is just a very simple sort of chat interface for all of our consultants. We're up to about half of our consultants so far. It'll be all by the end of October. And what it allows the team to do is just to ask a simple question like, how do I do a retail store operations diagnostic? And it will then search across 42 different databases inside the firm, 150,000 hours of external interviews that we've digitized, our sanitized staffing logs that say who's worked on what sort of project in what industry, and out comes a sort of draft answer to the question, right? Here's the approach. It sources it to specific internal documents. It names specific experts to call. And then if you click to another panel, it will ask the same question on like an open, on sort of just sort of a general open AI model with confidentiality protections around it, and it will give you, what does the outside world think is the answer to that question? What can you find in Harvard Business Review and so on? Is this going to replace what our teams do? No. Is this going to massively accelerate what our teams do? Absolutely. We're finding people love it. And more importantly, or as importantly, we're finding it's been an incredible learning for us on what it really takes to do that complicated architecture that was on the prior page. When we first had the MVP of this, it was going to cost us $1.70 per query, right, for any team that used it. That would have blown up the firm pretty quickly. So happily, we were able to figure out through context engineering, through prompt engineering, how to get that down to 1 cents per query. And we've got it down fourfold since then, since launching it. So how to solve problems like that, and in particular, how to get that context engineering right, and how to build a prompt library so people use it in the right way. These are all sort of tricky skills. I don't want to say super hard or impossible skills, but they're part of sort of the know-how companies will need to develop as they move forward in this space.
That right there's a primary example of different ways of using AI. Being a taker, where we're using things that are already available, and that's very powerful as well. Free version of ChatGPT, Google Bard, Microsoft Bing AI chat, all sorts of different tools that are available, not just to us, but also to students. And again, free, right? Which is great. Understanding what those tools are, using them, but that can only take us so far, because then there's other implementations that we can do by shaping the AI, meaning that we're using it in AI and we're feeding it our own information. So the example that they provided there was really powerful in what can be done. Again, something for us to think about with investments, of using it for the future, of using it in different ways. A lot of powerful things to think about. So the McKinsey Institute here really gives us a lot of some key insights in helping us to understand that, yes, there is some hype with AI, but there's lots of reality going on there. There's lots of power going on there. And the way that it's being used, the impact of AI is only going in this huge direction going upwards, because the development is ongoing. There's going to be so much more improvement and implementation of this. We have to be part of that. We can't, in academia, just be left behind scrambling to react. No, we have to start to incorporate. We have to make sure that AI literacy is a major part now in every single major. It's not something that's just computer science. No, we're way beyond that. This is a new reality that affects everyone. Every industry, every business is going to be using AI more and more. We need to prepare our students for that. Thank you very much for being part of this. If you enjoyed these videos, please check out a lot of the other videos where we talk about different aspects of AI in education and instructional technology in general. So thank you very much. Please like and share so that we can continue to develop this type of community. Please subscribe to the channel so that we can show support and develop this even more. Thank you. And remember, learning is for life.